invitation to this conference. My name is Radka Musilová, and I'm from NGO Zamenis. And as you can see, the Zamenis is the name of the snake. It's the rarest snake in the Czech Republic. Its name is Aesculapian Snake. And today I would like to share some information from the action plan that is realized in the northwest Bohemia. It's a place along the river, one of the major river in the Czech Republic. Its name is Eger in Czech and Eger in the English. So this will be about the snake living in this locality. The Aesculapian snake is quite unique snake species, and almost in all languages you can feel the connection to the god of medicine, Aesculapius, and almost in all languages it's already in its name. It's Aesculapian snake in English, Aesculapnatra in Germany, Aesculapopolos in Russia, Culevre d'Esculape in France, and Colubro d'Esculapio in Italy. But in Czech, the name is only like 3 snakes, so it's the only name that is not involved Aesculapian, but it used to be Aesculapian snake as well. And today you can see this snake. It's a symbol of pharmacy, of the doctors, and so on. And the other, I think, quite important thing is that it's quite a big snake. It can reach almost 2 meters. But in our locality, the longest snake that you can see here at the picture, it has, I would say, only 1 meter and 70 centimeters. And it can be, for the local people, it can be easily distinguishable from all other snake species because of its size. And also the color, because the snake has brown the side, and the ventral side is yellow. So the back is brown and the belly is yellow. So it's quite easily for the local people to see that this is not the venomous one. But at our locality, the snake has been unnoticed by the scientific community until 1880, and there is the first notice in literature that the snake is living in this valley. It was a long time ago, and it was quite, I think, strange for the people, because here, as you can see in the map, our locality is marked by blue point, and as you can see, it's maybe 200 kilometers far from other localities. So the first hypothesis, the first question was how the snake could live such a far from the, I would say, current distribution. And one of the first answers was that it might have been introduced. But the question is when, why, and who wanted in the history to introduce snakes. But there were some hypotheses. The oldest one is that snake was introduced by ancient Romans, then later by some noble families from Italy or France, or even later by some Greek merchant. But today it is considered to be a relic of wider distribution that was about several thousand years ago. And you can see that there is not only our population, but there are also few more populations that are isolated above the northern edge. And this fact can be supported in 2 ways, I would say. The first one is that we have fossil records. It's quite clear evidence that the snake used to be distributed, used to live even in the northern part of Germany, Denmark, and in Poland. And then there is a second way how to prove it, that based on some genetic research that was done maybe 10 years ago, and it was part of my PhD study. We did some analysis in Europe, and it was revealed that there are 2 clades in Europe and also 1 in Asia. And as you can see, the Aru population belongs to the eastern one, together with all the other isolated populations. So we can exclude the introduction theory from France or Italy based on this study. But you can feel that the situation of isolated population is not easy, because it's like more thermophilous species, and it's distributed mainly in the southern part of the Europe. But there are some isolated populations above the northern limit scattered around the Europe, and some of them are already black. It means they are extincted. But some of them still survive until today. But it's not easy for them, because the climate conditions are not very suitable, and it depends on the year. So there are some fluctuations in population size that are typical for the locality. So we started in 2005 by a systematic snake study. And at this time, we revealed that there might be around several hundred snakes, let's say from 400 to 600. It's not a critical value for the snake, but still it's not enough to be perspective population. And also there is other problem, that the area of the snake is quite limited. It's only 12 square kilometers. And then it's quite sure that there are some key places for the snakes, because of their annual cycle. They need some places for reproduction, for hibernation. And also there is one interesting things about the snake, that the snake is quite have strong association to man-made structure. And also we revealed some thickening factors, and we can show that reproduction success is not very high. There are some years that maybe less than 50% of eggs can be successfully hatched. Now have a look where the snake is living. As you can see from the map, it's mainly along the main river. Also there are the villages along the main river, and then the snakes spread a little bit to the grasslands or along the side streams, but still the whole area is quite small. And I would like to mention here that probably somewhere here there is a small settlement with the name Osveno, and we will mention it later. There is something like snake center today. We started with some population size study, and it's not because we are studying the snakes maybe for 20 years now, but we are not. It's not a continuous. We do some like short-term studies based on focused on population size. So one study was from 2005 to 2006, and then 10 years later we did the same just to compare how the population size changed. And we revealed some, I think, good information. Here you can see our famous snake, because the study is based on marking and recapturing snakes, and this snake we were able to catch him maybe 10 times, but this was not the reason why he's famous, but we were able to catch him like 10 years later. You can see 2005, 2015. And at that time, after 10 years, the marking it's not recognizable anymore. But if you make photos of head, you can. There are some specific, I would say, scales or anomalies, so you can determine the specific individual based on the photo. So we have huge up to now we have huge collection of photos, and it was not only this one snake. We later discovered that we know at least maybe 20 snakes from the previous study. So it can be sure that snakes can survive a long time in this locality, and it's not exception that they are be more than 20 years old. And these snakes give us a lot of information about the life and the secret life of the snakes, how they grew and how they live and so on. So if we compare the two population size studies, we can see that in the during the first study, we assessed that there is maybe 500 snakes, and 10 years later it was 600 snakes. So it might seem to not to be such a huge progress, but we think that it's a step into the right direction. At least 100 more snakes. And there is some other positive aspects that the proportion of young animals is growing. You can see from 14% to almost 20%, and it's always good to have a lot of young animals. It's like evidence of the population is growing. And what are the main threats for this isolated population? At the first place, it's of course the isolation itself, because it's more than 200 kilometers to some other population. So anything that happened to the population, it can't be supplemented by some other animals, because 200 kilometers is too far for snake to move. And also there are some other problems. It was already mentioned, the landscape changes, especially in the second half of the 20th century. Some traffic problems, and because it's a snake, there's still a lot of people they don't like snakes, so there might be problem the direct persecution. And in the recent period, it's also pets and non-native predators, because the snakes are usually living in the vicinity of human settlements. So they are dogs, cats, and also the non-native predators, like, for example, racoon. So I think that you have seen these pictures like in several more presentations these days, but this is from the center of the locality. It's the village with the name Stráž nad Ohří, and you can compare the picture from 1938 and in present. And we should mention that it's not the locality where the changes were so radical. It's still quite a nice place to live, even for people and snakes. But even there are some changes. There has been a reduction in the landscape mosaic. There is much more forest than used to be. And what is the worst for reptiles, that these changes led to disappearance of the scattered man-made structures like roads, like some dry stone walls, and all the places that can be. These places are quite crucial for the snake population. So because the situation is not very good, the action plan was approved in 2008. And there are several measures, like I think realizing just now. The most important thing how to help to the snake population is building killing sites, because the reproduction is not always successful in this climate. So it's like the main activities. Then there is some habitat management, like reptiles like the open areas. So where there is a succession and brush, you can, or bush, you can clean it every year. Then there is education, because the snake is living in a human landscape, so they are in contact, everyday contact with the people. So it's necessary to educate people, local people or tourists or other people that are in the landscape. Then we also focus on reproduction research. For example, we measure the temperature in the echoing sites, and we compare like different materials and its impact on reproduction. And of course, there is some long-term monitoring to know how it's going. So this is how the echoing site look like. It's nothing artificial, I think, in the landscape. It's just like a small fence that is filled with some organic material. We use usually sawdust, bark, straw, or some mixture of garden waste, let's say. This is quite a big one. It was this echoing site is one of the oldest one, and you can see that on the top it's also covered from the top because some it's like prevent from other animals to go inside and eat, for example, eggs. And on the top you can see these covers. They are very useful in snake monitoring because snakes like are hidden under these covers. Such a places we have up to now we have almost 40 echoing sites, so they are scattered around the whole locality. So it's quite a difficult job to take care about 80 echoing sites. And let's have a look what's happening, how it looks like. So because there is almost 40, there is a high diversity between them in, I would say, shape, size, and also the used material. Some of them are bigger, some of them smaller, and they are usually situated in some corners of the grasslands or pastures. So it requires cooperation with farmers because it's usually their land. So and it must be in open areas because snakes like sunny places. And also it's quite useful when it's accessible by at least four-wheel car, because then we can manage them, we can repair and add material. So this is like the important parameters of the echoing sites. And how it works during a year. This is the annual cycle of echoing site. You can see the most important part for the snakes is, of course, spring, when snakes emerge from the hibernating sites, and they are sometimes accumulating on the locality. I think that one record for us was it's this picture. There is 28 snakes under one shelter. And in this density, sometimes you can see the male combat or mating, but these are like more secret, so there are not many chances to watch them. And there is a lot of activities in the spring. Then at the beginning of summer, usually females lay their eggs inside the substrate, inside the material, and then the eggs are incubated for 2 months, at least 2 months inside the echoing site. So it's probably this period, and then sometimes during the late summer or mostly, but at the beginning of autumn, the youngs are hatched, and when they are hatched, they are like staying for a few days in the locality, and then they leave. But what will remain inside the material is the eggshell, and this is quite important for us because it's quite clear evidence that young babies of the snakes were hatched in the locality. So this part is most important for snakes, and this part is most important for volunteers and conservationists, because we are trying to find eggshells. Of course, usually later in the autumn, not to disturb the young ones, and you can see that it's quite a difficult job. It usually needs like tens of people to do, because we have almost 40 laying sites, and not enough time. And also, when we are finished with this, the winter time, usually the beginning of or the end of the winter, is the time when we do a lot of things about the laying sites. For example, repair the fence, add the material, and to prepare everything for the next season. And how we are successful from the amount of the laying sites, about 31 is systematically monitored, because some of them are in the private garden, so we don't go to the private garden so often. So these are, let's say, outside, so they are accessible easily. And a vast majority of the laying sites is occupied by Aesculapian snake, and approximately half of them is used for reproduction. Sometimes the laying site is not used for reproduction, but just like for shelter, not used maybe later, but for today it's half of them. And in some good years, we can harvest around 400 of eggshells together from the whole locality. And of course, there must be some places we don't know about them in some private gardens. So it's only the one part that we can like monitor. And if the question is how snakes, how to survive in a human landscape, we might say that for Aesculapian snake, the answer would be easily, because they can find almost everything they need in the human landscape. Usually around the houses, you can find food. For Aesculapian snake, it's like mice. Then you can find a lot of possibilities for shelter. You can find laying sites, and you can find hibernating or overwintering sites, usually in some ruins. So let's say that snakes have everything they need in the human landscape. And you can see in these pictures, the snakes don't avoid even going inside the houses. So these are the pictures from local people. You can spot them in the garden. It's still okay, but you can you can sometimes see them, even in the toilet or inside some electricity box. So we should say snakes everywhere. And I think that the local people are used to spot the snakes, but still there are some people that they are not very happy to have snakes everywhere on each step. So the education is crucial, and sometimes we save local people and like move snakes a little bit to another appropriate locality. But of course, living in a human landscape, it has also some darker side. There is a problem with traffic. Sometimes snakes want to cross the road, and it can be dangerous because it's quite a frequent road connected to main cities. So there are tracks all day, so it's not possible to cross. And moreover, the snakes are not only crossing; they are sometimes they are living just in the vicinity of the road, because it's an old one road, so there is a lot of dry stone walls along the road, and they find a nice place to live because they like this biotopes. And surprisingly, when snakes want to cross to other side, they use tunnels or culverts under underpasses, the old underpasses that were originally made for water. So they are used by snakes. And you can quite often you can see snakes like just lying maybe 1 meter far from the road. And they are not disturbed by noise, by shaking, by nothing. But what they don't take into account is like a huge machine. This is going regularly twice a year along the road and cutting the ditches. So it can be quite dangerous because they don't escape. They are used to live there. So that's the chance for volunteers. We usually have some people, and we are like trying to search snakes and to save them. And in this case, it's quite good that it's only 12 square kilometers, because we wouldn't be able to do it in the large scale, but these are just a few kilometers, so it's possible. And we are able to save, I would say, 20 snakes per year at least. So it's not useless. And because the snake is living like near people and near settlements, the education is a crucial part essential part of the project. It's very important, and it must be intensive. The earlier, the better. I can see that usually children are not afraid of snakes, but later there might be developed some mental blocks. So, but it's more difficult to get used to snakes later. And it was the education and I would say snake conservation and snake project was the reason why I personally moved from Prague to the locality and became a local in this context. And now we live in Osvinov. It's not even village. It's like a settlement, only a few houses, and at this place there is more horses than people living in this place. And continuously this place become a snake center. And today, apart from our family house, there is like a small information center open to public. And since last year there is like a big environmental institute that is in cooperation with Prokop Svoboda. You could hear it some presentation before. And there is a few more houses that are not connected with snake activities, but still there are people that are cooperating. So now we have a place where we can realize a lot of activities. There is in environmental institute, there is some possibilities to accommodate few people. There is a hall for presentation, and this is the small information center. It's mainly in the summer because it's open from the main road, if I can say, in just this small village. And we have also a park with activities for children. There are some insect houses and some boxes for nests and some information boards. And we also have all other snake species in outdoor terrarium, let's say. And so people can see the snake alive when they wanted to see it, and they are not they don't disturb them in nature. They can see them in our center. And before the COVID time, we used to have several like big actions for public, not only connected with snake, but usually at some other topics. And we cooperate with a lot of zoos and lot of other people. So in this small place, there were activities, and about 200 people came to see some programs, some special program. And of course, we think on the younger population, so it's usually accompanied by some activities, especially for children and families. So that's everything from my side, and I'm looking forward for your questions. Stop sharing. This one?
No, the red button.
This one?
Yes. Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Radka, for your presentation.
We love
That's
snakes.
interesting. Yes, yes, yes. Team snakes.
Do we have echo somewhere? No? Yes? Okay.
No. Okay, perfect.
Good. So we are ready for questions. Anyone who's
Any
up?
question? Okay, yours.
Actually, I have two questions. Question one is if the population is so isolated, so actually the genetic keepers should be really low. So if you see some like inbreeding, like anomaly or something, it's occurring in this really isolated population. And my second question is if you have any evidence of the predation of especially like domestic pets like cats or this problem, special population.
Okay.
Very close to the
Okay, the first question, there are some, because we make a photo of each snake, we can confirm that there are some anomalies, maybe in the scales, in the fluidosis. I think it's difficult for snake population, and they are not very vulnerable, not so vulnerable to the inbreeding. But there might be the problem, and we are planning to do some genetic research that it will be focused on population itself. But I think that there are not many problems. So maybe this is not a problem. We will see. And the second, because snakes are usually living in the gardens, there is sometimes conflict between snakes and some pets, and we have some evidence that usually the local people inform us that by accident her cat or dog was able to catch a snake, but we can't avoid this because the snakes are going to the garden. So
it's not happening so often,
or not so often, but
not so close.
Because the snakes are usually secret. They are usually hidden, so there's not many patients. So sometimes the snakes are living in the garden, and the people don't know about them until they are doing some reconstruction and they are going to the abandoned corners or something like that. So
because I have normally the problem if I even try to make some the friendly places and shelters for lizards and everything. And I don't have the cats, but my neighbors have the cats, so I see that they are catching all lizards and this. So I see that could be the problem.
Yeah, that could be, but the advantage of the snake is that it's quite a big one. So maybe the cat, it's the longest one or the biggest ones are maybe too big to be afraid.
I would like to ask if there is any expansion of the area of the population, because you said you can be monitoring the population, so is there any prospect of expansion?
Yes.
If you can just catch the snake without it lying to you, or I know it's not venomous, but
So yeah, the first question, there is some expansion. It's one of the goals of the action plan it used to be, I would say, 8 square kilometers, and now we are at least at 12, but I think it's spreading. We are building the echolink sites even on the edge of the current distribution. So, and snakes are easily can easily find a place and occupy it. So this is quite positive that they can spread in the landscape. And because today we also use the social media, and some people are making photos of what's happening in their garden. So we found a lot of localities based on information from local people. So now we know that there are some localities a little bit few kilometers, and snakes are like prosper there for a long time. So that's good. And the second question, sometimes it's possible to avoid biting, and sometimes not. But the snake is not venomous, so because we try not to disturb snakes so much. So it's why there is like study, and then there's 10 years gap, and then another study. We like monitor snake all the time, but in this gap we avoid like catching them or disturb them. So, but when there is the study, you need to catch them, and you are always like bitten.
So it's not that you find this snake hidden somewhere in your house and you can just take it?
Yeah, it's why the local people usually call us, because they are a little bit afraid to touch him, and it can be quite a big animal. So it's, if you are not used to get bitten, so it's nothing pleasant.
How do you assess the population? You count eggs, but also you count somehow adults. And if you count the kind of quantities in your breeding site, or you do some whole area assessment, or if you look for it in the field?
Yeah. The population size assessment is based on mark recapture studies. So we mark individuals by cutting a small triangle onto the central site, and you can recognize them easily maybe 2 or 3 years later. So it's made only on adults, because young ones are too small to make such a mark. And at this time, not only on the design, but everywhere in the landscape, every part. So it's on the whole area. But there are some places you are not able to go, for example, private gardens and so on. So we think that the population size is a little bit higher, because there is some part that are not accessible for us. So the number, the 600, is based on the area we are able to systematically monitor and visit.
You mentioned that you have some, like, after 10 years, some recaptures. And what was the proportion from the whole recapture?
I think it might be maybe 10%. Quite a lot. Because this was the number of 54. Was the famous one, because the snake had a lot of anomalies. So when I catch him, I easily recognize that the one from the previous study. I didn't have the idea that I could even meet the snake from the previous study. So later, when I had a closer look to the database of Otto, and I found maybe 20 more snakes that were already in the first study. So after 10 years, they were still surviving, and surprisingly, usually at the same place.
Yeah. And how many eggs they have?
The one female, can have from 8 to 12. So when you find I think that our record for one egg laying site is, for example, 120 eggs. So it means at least 10 or 12 females together. It's typical for them that they join to do it like together.
I'm just thinking, you have a lot of data, like it would be fantastic to do, for example, the PDA on it, to see. I have a feeling that if I have high survival, and it doesn't go much up for the population, so there should be probably high mortality of immigration or mortality of young ones. And if you have such a data, it would be really nice to do some models and see what can be the problem, or what more?
I think there is high mortality of youngs. Surely they said that there is 90% mortality during the first year, overwintering. But there was not a huge progress in compared to first and second study. You know, the population size assessment is based on adult animals, and it takes 5 years to become like adult ones. So if we just started with echoing size and all the things, I think that 10 years is not enough to include the animals that were already born because of our measures of echoing size. So maybe the next one after the 10 years time, we will see.
So you are
sorry.
So you are not planning to do shorter term capture analysis, because now that Kafka mentioned, like with the special explicit capture, it will be possible to see which part of the population is where which individuals are migrating or which individuals are dead. I mean, it's a bit science fiction, this capture analysis, but there are supposedly tools to divide this just to because 10 years is so long.
No, we can think about that.
And I had maybe a couple more questions. So for people listening and all us watching, what would be the minimum thing, the easiest thing that anybody could do in their gardens to promote having snakes? I mean, I would like to have snakes. Yes, it's small, but I think it's possible.
So it's quite easy, and it's the best way how to protect the snake is to convince the local people that they have something unique and to do something for snake. And it's not difficult. Snakes usually like the compost heaps, and usually who has a garden has also the compost. But it's necessary to put it on sunny place and don't dig. For example, in the summer, because there might be the eggs inside, so like to adjust the timetable of the activities. So also usually they can find shelter in some wood. Usually in garden you have some wood prepared for fire or for something like that. So this is usually to protect it from rain. They are covered by some shelter, and usually snakes love these places. So I think that there is don't disturb the snakes. Be careful when you mow the grass, because that's the activity that is quite dangerous for not only snakes but a lot of amphibians, reptiles, and so on. And have a compost.
I have a few of those things, still working on it, but yeah. And another question, maybe it's a bit more difficult and worthy of a whole discussion, but you saw an image, a fantastic image of a terrified woman holding a snake, and it brings so many thoughts. Like there is now, at least in social media in Spain, is like a huge pressure not to show yourself touching fauna. It's getting even scary. Like even as a biologist, that you have to do it, post it or not. But it's clear that in some cases the value is immense of a very scared person still I'm gonna touch the snake, and I'm gonna feel that it's not dangerous. So I don't know if there is a question here, but what do we do? Like, should we touch them? Should we not touch them? Should we? It's important for example, children to learn that it's okay. Maybe for some individuals that are not very stressed.
Yeah, that's the question. I think for people it's really important to touch and to have the snake in your hand, and we have usually one snake for this thing. So it's not from the wild, but it's like from some captivity. And this snake, I think, is adapted. Yeah, so he doesn't bite, and so this is like for this education purpose, we have to devote one animal to do this job, because it's, I think,
it's part of the crew.
Sacrifice one.
Thank you.
You said the population is increasing, and is there still a possibility that there are maybe more snakes to spread? And do they need to follow the river down, or is there some program that
I think the habitat is quite nice, even far from our locality. It is necessary to say that we don't know exactly why the snake is just only at this small place. It's because there might be very steep slopes with a lot of scree and stony places. But even like a few kilometers on each side, I think that there will be still possible to survive for snakes, because the landscape from my point of view looks almost the same. Maybe not so steep slopes, but still some small villages, gardens, grasslands, pastures. So I think that there is place. And last year we found a locality that is like 20 kilometers far. It's near Moravia, and there is surprisingly quite a lot of animals. These animals, maybe tens of them, and we are not sure how they get to the locality, because it's like 20 kilometers far. But it's we study it times. The one reason is that maybe we don't know, but it might be continuous along the river, even these 20 kilometers, but not such a huge density as we are from scratch. So this will be studied.
I have a question. Do you think that they can benefit the snakes from climate change forward?
Sometimes I think, but I'm afraid that the climate change, it's not that if there will be only warmer, it would be good, but there might be some, you know, like peaks, and that's not because especially when the winter is moderate, we can meet much more young animals, like the newborns after first hibernation, than in years when there's like harsh winter. So it surely have impact. But you know, there are 3 moderate winters, and then it comes like with 20 degrees under zero. And
okay. Any more questions?
Maybe just one shot. There is something for them to know how the or there is some problem for them.
we can't be sure, because you know, if the animal died underground, we probably won't know. We know there are some famous hibernating sites, so we can see the snakes in the before winter and after winter. And I think that the main risk is especially the low temperature. Usually the wintering sites are not affected by floodings, because there are no floodings in this area. So only the or for example reconstruction. If the animals are hibernate in some ruins or some old houses, you never know what can happen during the winter.
Okay. Good. So I think we can make the lunch break now.
It's about time,
so,
no?
First of all, thank you, Radka, for your
Thank you for your attention.